I think possibly the term blaxploitation that has come to be the term to describe the black films or African American films of the 70s was really coined for me personally, or Superfly, the film, um, for reasons which I will explain. Let me tell you something about the climate. It's difficult to know what the climate was like then. Superfly came out in 1972. The first really black film, and probably one of the best of them, was Sweetback's Badass Song by, oh my goodness, Alzheimer's. Van Peebles, Melvin Van Peebles. Marvelous film, much misunderstood film. 69, I think it was. 70. 69, 70. Like that, yeah. In 64, I mean, they were shooting us with water hoses and dogs still. You couldn't ride in the front of the bus in parts of this country. We're talking, you know, 5, 6 years after, 7 years after the assassination of President Kennedy and Malcolm and King. And we're talking about it. The dream is still sort of alive then. The King dream is still there. And there was a promise, there was a hope for the future of race relations that I frankly don't see now. Nor do I have it myself, frankly. So in that climate, maybe it was about time for the entertainment business, for the film industry to change, to try and catch up with some of the fast-moving events that had taken place. What do I mean by that? Well, traditionally, we had one black movie star. You know, at the time it was Sidney Poitier. Before that, it was James Edwards, an actor who not many people know, but he was the black movie star. And he had an unfortunate social occurrence here in Hollywood, and they blacklisted him. He didn't work for 15 years. And like this happened, say, on Friday. On Tuesday, they came up with Sidney Poitier. You know, dear friend and marvelous actor. And before that, there was, well, I won't take my time trying to think of who it was. But you get the point. Well, along came Melvin Van Peebles with Sweetback. And then MGM came up with Shaft. My friend Richard Roundtree. And Cotton Comes to Harlem. And then Superfly. All in the space of 18 months or so. What we were trying to emulate movie stars achieve what we saw these films and these actors, white films achieving, white film stars that we admired. Bronson, Charles Bronson, Clint Eastwood, Burt Reynolds, not John Wayne, although I happen to like John Wayne, but we weren't trying to do John Wayne's thing. And so forth. You know, the action heroes of the time. And we were beginners in the craft, most of us. We hadn't worked a lot as actors, on film anyway, and so we set out. And what we were trying to do is a very different thing than what is happening now in modern African American films, which tend to be mostly about young people, kids, gangs on the block, and so forth. We didn't make movies like that. We made movies trying to show a mature, intelligent black man who was part of the system, who is operating with all the panache and verve of James Bond. That was what we were trying to do. You know, we were trying to prove we are as good looking and have as much panache and as much ego as any white actor. Just as the basketball players wanted to do the same thing, the football players have had to prove the same things, you know, that we will hit just as well or better, run just as fast or better, and that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to belong to the system. When Superfly opened, it opened to incredible reviews for the most part. There were some who really hated the film, as well. What else is new? The New York Times said they thought Superfly was the best movie, the best gangster movie they had seen since James Cagney's Public Enemy in 1933. Okay? I used to have a big six-foot blow-up of it, but if anyone doubts it, all they have to do is read the New York Times, I think it was late August, early September 1972. Jerry Greenspan, that's what the man said. So there was no comment on the film. That Superfly played for about 6 weeks to absolutely packed houses. We broke every box office record. And the audiences were not black. I mean, there were more blacks than normal. But the audiences were like, it's a very New York-y film. Those who know New York will know what I'm talking about. New Yorkers love that movie. All kinds of New Yorkers, okay? You couldn't get a seat. We broke every existing box office record. The music was fabulous. Now, the term blaxploitation. Whenever an enterprise, one of the problems with black people, the cry long has been that whenever blacks try to do anything, other blacks have a tendency to pull them down. The crabs in the barrel syndrome. Well, that's exactly what happened with black films. Every black person with an axe to grind, with a point of view, with a platform, and you know, what they say, opinions and platforms are like we know what. Everyone's got one, okay? Everyone with a point of view jumped on the bandwagon of criticizing Superfly in order to get the press that they could not get otherwise. By this I mean CORE, the NAACP, all of them. I mean, they actually told me this. Roy Ennis actually told me this. He said, I have to raise money for my organization. He said, Ron, I liked the film. I took my daughter to see Superfly. We understood what the film was about. But I'm going to take you on the Today Show, and I'm going to cut your mouth out. We were having breakfast. He was buying me breakfast, okay? And I was like, unbelieving. I was so naive. I was just a stage actor, and I did poetry concerts and things. And I was raised to a level of power or involvement with circles of power happening around me that I wasn't used to or prepared for. And anyway, blaxploitation. Superfly was released by Warner Brothers. The term blaxploitation was not an accident, and it was not a term created by white people. Blaxploitation was a term created by a black person, a black press agent named Junius Griffin, who was at the time the head of the Beverly Hills NAACP, which at the time sounded like an oxymoron to me, but that's frankly it did, and he had tried everything in his power to get the account, the Warner Brothers account, to handle the PR for Superfly. And he didn't get it. And it's a big brouhaha, and he was either fired or he quit. I'm not certain which. So he formed his own press agency, and guess what his very first film was? His first account was Sounder, starring Cicely Tyson. The film, a lovely family film with admittedly uh, made for the mental age of between 8 and 13. It's from a children's book about a dog barking all the time, and I mean, it's a very nice little Walt Disney kind of. It was a very mild version of slavery, of what the South was like, and there were no heavies. It was an interesting film because no one was at fault in Sounder. I mean, it was just, life is just terrible sometimes for some people, sometimes, but there was no villain. Okay. Sounder died in New York when it opened. I know because I went to the opening. They asked me to go to the opening, which I did. So keep in mind, up to this point, there was no criticism of Superfly whatsoever. Sounder opened. We did more than an hour than they did all week. Okay? Superfly, the film, did more. We did more in a day than they did in a week in any one theater. In 2 theaters, they were in. So, all of a sudden, out came, in the New York Times entertainment section, a vicious attack on Superfly by Cicely Tyson, star of Sounder, okay, who then admitted she hadn't seen Superfly, but she knew that it was a piece of junk. That's what she said in the article. And then, on the heels of that, came from the pen of Junius Griffin came the term blaxploitation. He was very tight with Johnson Publications, and that's where the term was popularized, through Ebony and Jet magazine. Blaxploitation. And Johnson Publications was particularly unkind to Superfly, mostly because I had nothing to do with it, because it was, in some ways I can't blame them, because the producer of Superfly was the kind of guy, he could be a rather abrupt and rude person when he chose to be. Well, it seems that Ebony magazine wanted, it's a black film, they wanted an account, they wanted like some $10,000 ads. Having rudely declined this $10,000 ad, Johnson Publications made it an editorial policy, as I was told this by one of their staff writers, who was a friend of mine. I said, Ron, I'm sorry, but I have to do a hatchet job on you, because it's Johnson Publication has an editorial policy concerning you in the film Superfly, that you're in a little special place, and we can't say anything good about you. So, in the course and through the thrust of that, Johnson Publications publicized Junius Griffin's little jingle word, blaxploitation, and to the utter damnation of all black films and black artists, and hopefully to himself, as far as I'm concerned. If that's personal, I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel, because this changed not only my life, it changed a lot of people's lives, and unfairly so. Because I'm not ashamed of anything that I did in Superfly. And I've done a lot of things I'm very proud of, from Shakespeare to poetry concerts to everything else. And I've seen roles, I've turned down roles that I thought were not what black actors should be doing. And other black actors jump up and do them. And I've turned them down, because I didn't think they were appropriate. Well, you find out all it does is cost you money, No one cares. Anyway, I care, so it's enough. It's good enough.